Welcome to Making Your Webcomic Part 2. In this video, we're going to be talking about flatting and rendering. Flatting is the process of adding flat colours to line art, and rendering is when we add shadows and highlights to that flat colour. So let's get started. Let's open up our inked image from last time. And let's go ahead and make a new layer. And we're going to call that layer Flats. And then we're going to head over to the sidebar and we're going to pick this polygon lasso tool. And you might want to zoom in and make your image just a little bit bigger and place it where you like it. And then all we're going to do is tap around the outside of our panel. And you're going to try and stay inside of the line. Just go as slowly and as carefully as you need to. You don't have to follow the line exactly, you just have to make sure that your selection is inside the black line. And then once you've got it selected, you want to fill it using Shift Backspace. And you'll see that that box has appeared on top of our line art, which we don't want. So let's go ahead and drag that flats layer underneath our inks layer. Much better. And you can choose whatever color you want for this background. Now to drop the selection, you're going to press Ctrl, Shift and A. And then we're going to move on to the second panel. And let's do the same thing. We're just going to tap and click and follow our line art all the way around until it joins up again. We're going to fill our selection with Shift and Backspace. And I'm still using the same color. And then let's go ahead and do the third panel. Again, you don't have to be precise, you just have to make sure your selection is underneath the black lines. All right, now that we have that, let's go ahead and just pick a different color. And then we're going to pick out the floor. And you're just going to follow your line. And then when we get to the white space, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to go around the outside and do it quickly because I'm going to show you how to remove the white easily. We're going to click our magic wand tool. And then we're going to hold Alt. And then we're going to click. And that's going to remove the white space from our selection. And so then we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill that selection with Shift Backspace. And there's our floor done. So let's go ahead and do that to the second panel as well. And you don't have to worry about picking out the leg or anything like that. We're just going to kind of go straight through and worry about that later. And then when we get to the white space, again, we're just going to make a big loop. Just to do it fast, go back to our magic wand tool. Hold Alt and then remove that selection. And then we have the floor done on the second panel. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and do that for the food bowl. And then let's pick another color and then we're going to go through and we're going to do that with all of the little bits of food. Now all of the bits of food, you want all the food to be the same color. So you're going to do the same thing where you go through and you're going to select each little bit of food, but you're just going to stay on the same color so it's all the same. It just makes it a little easier for selection later on. And you can zoom in if it's too small and you can't see what you're doing. And remember, you can move the canvas by holding spacebar and clicking and dragging. And then let's go ahead and do the inside of the bowl a different color. And then we'll select the cat and we'll start doing the cat. And the colors don't really matter too much. What you want to be doing is making sure the colors are different enough from each other. so that when you go to select them later on, it's easy for the program to be able to pick the colors out. If you make the colors too similar, then the program's going to have trouble differentiating between each color. So don't worry if you end up with a purple cat and a pink wall and yellow food, because you can go back and change all of that later. Flatting is going to be mostly about separating out the sections of your image. So we're just going to quickly speed through this, and you're going to use that same formula of using your polygon lasso to select all the little bits, and then you'll fill each bit, and then you'll move on to the next color. And don't forget to do the inside of the ears, the nose, the mouth, all that sort of stuff. Alright, now that we've got that done, we're going to move on to the rendering. So with the rendering, we're going to want to use our magic wand tool. So select that. Now, when you're using your magic wand tool, make sure that you've got contiguous area selection on so that you can select multiple sections at one time. And then let's make a new layer. And then let's click this little color picker tool, because we're going to select the same color, or you can choose any color you like. And then we're going to fill that selection with Shift Backspace. And if you turn off your flats layer, you'll be able to see that selection. And then we're going to go ahead and lock that layer. So we've got just that wall, just that background layer, and we've locked it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our little selection, our marquee tool, and I'm just going to select the first two panels. And then I'm going to select this gradient tool here. And you're going to go ahead and pick whatever color you like. And I'm going to just drop a nice green shade down. And that gradient's just going to create a nice wash. And remember, we're not doing this on the flats layer, we're doing this on a layer above the flats layer. That's important. And to drop your selection, you're going to press Control, Shift, and A. And then let's make a new selection over the last panel, and let's pick a new color, because this is sort of a daydream sequence, so we don't want it to necessarily look identical to the first two panels. And then once we've changed the color, we'll pick a gradient color to use, maybe a nice bright green. And then we're going to click and drag to add that gradient. Add as much as you like. That might be a bit dark. Let's make it a little lighter. And there you go. You've got your background panels done. But let's add a little bit of interest to the first two panels. Let's add some drop shadows. So you're going to use your polygon tool, and you're just going to pick out some shadow shapes. Now, because you've got that layer locked, don't worry about the white section. You can fill that layer and it's not going to go outside into the white section. So just choose whatever color you feel works. And then we're going to go back to our magic wand tool. Make sure we're on contiguous area selection. And then we're going to pick out the floor. And that's going to be the next thing we render. Now let's make a new layer and select the color of the floor, or from the color picker, whatever color you want. And then let's fill our selection with Shift and Backspace. And then let's flick our flats layer on and off just to make sure that we've actually filled that layer. And then let's go ahead and lock that layer. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to take our gradient tool. We're going to pick out a color that we want to use. Probably a lighter color because we're trying to add some light. And then we're just going to drag that down. Just click and drag. And then we're going to go back to our flats layer. And we're going to move on to the next thing that we want to render. And let's go ahead and do the food bowl. And let's make a new layer. And then select our color. And then let's fill that selection. And then let's check to see if we filled it, which we did. And then let's lock that layer. Now we're going to do something a little bit different with this one. And we're going to paint in our highlights. So let's go to our brush selection. And I'm actually going to use the same brush that we used when we were inking. Which is going to be the G3 pen. You can choose whichever brush that you like, have a play around. But this is just what I'm going to use for now. I'm going to make that brush kind of large. I'm going to make sure it's weighted, which it is, and then we're going to pick a lighter grey highlight colour, and I'm just going to brush that on. And you can brush it on in whatever pattern you want, because we just want to add a little bit of interest to the bowl. And it's a rough sketch, so we don't want to get too carried away. I feel like keeping the colouring simple on a simple drawing is probably best. And then let's go ahead and just lighten that colour up a bit and add a secondary highlight, just around the rim and the edges. All right, and then maybe we'll just colour in the little fish head, bring that out a bit. And then we can choose a nice pink colour for the heart, and we can just go ahead and brush that in. And then that's our bowl all done. So our layers are getting a bit excessive, so let's go ahead and merge those down. That's going to be Control E, and that's going to merge the layer that you're on to the layer underneath. Remember not to merge all the way down to your flats layer though. We want to keep that flats layer separate. So let's go ahead and make a new layer, and then let's do the inside of the bowl. So it's going to be the same thing. You're going to flood fill it in whatever color you want, and then we're going to lock that layer. And then let's go back to our brush, and then let's pick a highlight layer, and then we're just going to brush in some quick rim highlights. And that's it, that's done. And if you make a mistake, don't worry. Just hit Control Z to undo anything that you don't want to keep. And then let's move on to the food. Now this is a little fiddly, and you're going to want to click each piece of food and try and make sure you get them all. And then check to make sure by turning your flats layer off and back on again. And then once you're sure that you've got all of your food selected, then you're going to want to go ahead and lock that layer. And then choose your brush tool, and then let's choose a nice highlight color for the food. And you might want to zoom in for this as well to see what you're doing. And then you're just going to go through, and we're going to quickly brush in those highlights. You don't need to overlabor it, just a really quick little swipe will do. And you're essentially going to do this for all the rest of the bits in the image. You're just going to select each section, pick a highlight color, and drop your highlight color onto it. So I'm going to just speed through and show you the rest fairly quickly on the cans. And you'll see that I add a first highlight and then a secondary highlight. And then when I go to do the pink labels, you'll see that I try to match where those highlights have gone, so that there's a follow through. All right, now let's move on to doing the cat. We're going to do the cat a little bit differently. We're going to do the cat a lot like how we did the wall on the floor. So let's get that gradient tool, and we're just going to put a little bit of a lighter gradient on the cat. And I'm just going to work on one panel at a time. And then we're going to go and take that brush, select a nice highlight color, and then just go through and brush in those highlights where you'd like them. And remember, if you don't like how it's looking, you can always press Ctrl Z and redo it. I'm just going to go ahead and speed up the footage here. You can pause the video at any point and go back and re-watch things and work at your own pace. And don't forget to add little highlights to the nose and the tongue and the inner ears. It's the little details that are really going to bring things to life. And then now we're going to go ahead and choose a different brush because we're going to add some shadows. So I'm going to go for this airbrush here. And you can choose whichever brush you want. Again, this is your comic and you can do what you like. You might want to experiment around to see what kind of shadow effects work best for you. In the end, I think I went with this roller brush. But you're just going to pick a darker color and you're just going to go ahead and brush through some really quick little shadows. And then you're done. So let's talk about adding some text because we want to add in a title and maybe an issue number. So we're going to pick the text tool and then you're going to draw out a little text box. Then this dialog box is going to pop up and you're going to choose whatever font you want to use. I'm using Comica Title. And then let's write down the issue number. So if this is the first one, so it's going to be issue number 1. And let's go ahead and make that 12 point. And then let's spread it out, add a little spacing, 150 spacing I think. We'll save that, close it, and there we have it, issue number 1. And then you can just drag that wherever you like it. And then let's go ahead and add the title of the issue. We're going to want to go down and select maybe our inks layer or any other layer really. And then that'll allow us to add a second text box. Otherwise, if you click on the text box, it'll just edit that text box. So you're going to want to click on a layer underneath. Let's go ahead and name our comic. We're going to name this Food for Thought. And let's make that the same size as what we previously added and add the same spacing. And then save and close. And then let's just move it into place. And then let's go back to our inks layer. And then let's add the title of the comic. And we're going to want the title to be larger. So let's make that 24 point. And then I'm calling it Grug the Cat. And that's going to be the title of the comic. And let's save it, and then let's close it. And then we can just place that wherever we want it. And then we are all done. You'll want to save it as a Krita file, but you'll also want to save it as a JPEG or as a transparent PNG so that you can upload it to any website that you choose. Let's talk about where you can host your webcomic because there are quite a few places that offer free hosting for webcomics. And I'll add the links to those websites down below. And then you can choose whichever web hosting site you think is going to suit your style best. We'd love to see what you come up with, so drop us a comment and let us know where you've got your comic.